The objective of this innovation is a targeted treatment of urine patches that can eliminate nitrate leaching beyond the pasture root zone. In a farm trial funded to the tune of $1.7 million from the Sustainable Land Management and Climate Change Research Program, taking place on 50 hectares of a Taranaki demonstration farm, is a very cool pastoral robotic invention known as Spikey. Now, joining us to understand more is Spikey Marketing Manager Denis Collins. Denis, welcome to Serious Country. Firstly, how did this come about? It's such a cool concept.
This came about when some scientists, a farmer and engineer got together and said, the issue with nitrate leaching is cow urine spots. If we could detect those and treat them, we could be onto a winner. That was 7 years ago. So that team over that time have developed a machine, and we call it Spikey because there's spiky discs that travel across the ground to detect urine spots.
My very first question. My very first question to you before we get into that. My apologies, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Matt would like to know, Spikey, the name. How does it get on with rocks then?
It just goes across the top of the ground, so rocks are no problem, and we have got one operating in Canterbury right now. So the spikes get a little bit blunt over time, but it's only to detect urine spots. So it just has to make contact. It doesn't actually go into the ground. So
there was a farmer, a research scientist. Tell us about how they got together and created Spikey.
Well, there was multiple scientists and multiple farmers, and there was one engineer that was issued the challenge, how do we detect urine spots? And once we could do that successfully, then we could move into what we could treat it with. So the technology to detect urine spots has got an IP on it. So I can tell you it runs across the ground, we can detect them. And we like to do that within 48 hours of grazing. And the reason for that is we then have time for our nitro stop, which is the trade name for what we treat urine with, to work effectively. The sooner the nitro stop gets on, the sooner it can work.
And so to get to this point, the engineer would have had a lot of challenges face him to implement this in a working commercial sense. What were some of those fundamental things that they made sure that would be able to roll out across all farms, not just a trial farm?
So Jeff Bates, our engineer, he spent some time developing the technology and making sure it was simple. And when I say simple, it can be easily scaled up from a manufacturing point of view, and it's also robust in farm working conditions. So he spent, without going into too much detail, spent a fair bit of time developing that in association with our farmers, who are very good at wrecking gear and testing things. So, and then adding and changing it and evolving it. So we've ended up with a machine that's simple. Componentry is easy to replace, it's robust, and it can detect the urine spots. So I should mention that we've worked with Irish scientists and Australian scientists as well as New Zealand scientists to actually test this technology to prove that it works. And we've come through with flying colours, so that was the GIPLA project. The other part of the thing is developing NitroStop, and that's been an evolution over the last 7 years.
So explain to us, how does it work as part of a farm management system in terms of the time post cows moving out of that paddock, and how much area does it cover and the time it would take to do those rounds?
So we've got, the machine is 8 metres wide, and it's got 2 wings that fold down. So and that can cover a fair bit of contour, different type of contour. So that machine, we can travel at 12 kilometres an hour across the paddock, and at that point you start worrying about troughs and strainer posts because they come up rather quickly. We work on, by the time you add in the loading and mixing and adding things, in hill country we're doing about 6 hectares an hour, and on flat country we can get up to 10 hectares an hour. We want to do it within 48 hours. The cost component, which is important, is, and we've just done some modelling on that based on some of our costs that we have, and we have a contractor ready to go in the South Island now, so it's around about $32 per hectare per pass. We found in the Rotorua example that on average we go across the paddocks 8.5 times a year following the cows. So that works out round about, in the cost base is $300 a hectare.
Yeah,
failure.
and of course, overseer effectively being an environmental accounting system, stacking up to the penalties under, say, the freshwater regulations that are coming into play and penalties. Have you been able to do the economics yet around that?
So the economics we've looked at is in the dry matter response. So there's two things that happen. We're looking at reduced leaching and capturing our nitrogen, growing more feed. So the economic side is potentially the feed results we're getting. We're up to 26%. We're looking at around about $1,000 a hectare potentially. The leaching numbers, we've gone from 30% plus reduction in leaching with Spikey. So what we'd like to do is lift it up to farm scale. So we've done lysometers in the ground. We've done paddock trials. The Taranaki project's an opportunity to do the farm systems on the top of the ground and the dry matter response, and then measure the leaching underneath. And that will then inform models like Overseer and give regional councils confidence in this as a legitimate mitigation strategy.
So effectively, Denis, you could see this as recycling nitrogen.
That is exactly how we see it, capturing the nitrogen that goes past the root zone and utilising it to grow feed.
And then how far away will it take to implement this with regional councils, do you think?
We're at the stage now where early adopters are working with it now. Regional councils have to adhere to the Resource Management Act, and they need peer-reviewed science. We have some papers. This project will give us more papers, and we're working with the Overseer modelers to incorporate it in the algorithms, which is a big body of work.
Congratulations, Denis. This must be extremely rewarding. Where to from here with this funding?
So the funding's for the Taranaki demonstration farm. I'm working with the Dairy Trust Taranaki and Ag Research to do this trial and the farm teams down there, which is really great. As part of this funding project, we've also got some lysometers being put into a farm in the Rotorua catchment with some existing lysometers that are already there, so we can utilise that and get some data out of that. We're also doing some modelling in different areas on other farms in terms of dry matter response and some lysometer work to inform a model like Overseer. So there's 3 tranches of work to this funding proposal that we've received.
I have a comment come in here. I'm not too sure how you want to address this, from Mark Anderson, that other than addressing a broken nitrogen cycle, are the chemicals used in the N inhibitors okay for soil biology?
Yeah, so the two drivers that we've got in the moment, from a soil biology, they're both actually, one's used widely already and the other one is used in the food processing unit, and they break down. So from the ACVM component and from a environmental protection component, we don't see any issues with what we use now. And anything we do put down into Spikey, we have to go through some rigorous processes to make sure that it's not going to affect the food chain and the environment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Marketing Manager for Spikey, Denis Collins. And of course, I'm just looking at Spikey Gets the Official Nod is the title of the article now on farmersweekly.co.nz, brought to you by Hugh Stringleman.
This is Sarah's Country.